So now we're going to hear from NBA writer and author Yaron Wiseman as he wrote a book on LeBron James' saga in LA called A Hollywood Ending: The Dreams and Drama of the LeBron Lakers. That title actually fits this occasion perfectly. But you guys check it out, and every once in a while, I'll check in.
Only one. It's missed the playoffs 2 years, right? Which is something that LeBron never. I mean, I guess it was his rookie year. Maybe it was it. It's missed the playoffs. It's just they weren't really in the game. I'm gonna say even they made the conference finals. That there was the Darvin Ham year they made it, where like that was like they overachieved. That was like, oh my god, they made the conference finals, right?
And also, Ja Morant fucked up. That was a year where he was not serious. He got caught up in all those incidents. And the Grizzlies should have really knocked off the Lakers. So Ja Morant not being prepared allowed them to make that Western Conference Finals appearance.
Yeah, and they had a very easy path to get there, too.
Yeah, like that team was not a contender. It's like, that's almost how I'd phrase it. They really weren't in the game for many of these years. And a gut lot goes like, the Westbrook trade is sort of the line of demarcation here, where like we were a contender before that. We made this trade, and they basically haven't been a contender since, is kind of where it's at. Oversimplifying, obviously. But just, I can even tell you, like, that there's the on-court part, and again, I don't live in LA, but talking to some people, getting, just doing the process of this, talking to Lakers fans, and even being in LA every time, and I'm in an Uber, and they're not like Thomas Friedman talking about the cab drivers, but like I'm in an Uber, and they're telling me they're Lakers fans, and just like there's not this embrace of LeBron in a way that is just strange. Like every other organization, he'd be a hero. There, he's not.
Because the Lakers are one of the few franchises in the NBA where they could make at least an argument, and it could not sound crazy, but they could at least make an argument that they've had better players, and they can name at least 5 guys who they believe who are better. It doesn't necessarily have to be right, but the argument is valid just to make that argument. There's no other franchise where LeBron could walk in the building and they could say, hey, we've had 5 guys at least better than you that's been here. And also with LeBron, that's why it was important for him to go to that pop-out concert with Kendrick Lamar during the beef with Drake, because even though Drake is LeBron's boy, LeBron's branding and just ingratiating himself with the LA market, that was important that he showed up, because it showed that he stood by LA. That was really a brand building process for him to pop out at that concert. Let's not forget, when he first showed up, there was a bunch of LA fans that felt a kind of way, especially the Kobe stans, and then LeBron had a mural that was defaced.
It's just a weird mix, and that started from day one, right? When the defacing of the murals and all that stuff. Go back and watch his when he passes. It's really interesting when he passes Jordan his rookie year, his first year in LA. He passes Jordan for 3rd all-time scoring, and it's a really weird. They try to make it a big event, and like there's no applause. Bill Plaschke writes a great column on it in the LA Times, sort of saying like, I forget the lead, but basically, the equivalent of if a tree falls and no one hears it doesn't make a sound, right? I don't know if that was exactly it, but something like that. And again, part of it is it's not necessarily his fault. The fact that his one highlight happens in a bubble, or his greatest highlight happens in a literal bubble when there's no parade, robs fans of a connection point that these things that like fandom is built on. So it's a really strange era to summarize. I think part of it also goes back to there's no one reason like why LeBron joined LA. Like when he went, it's different. When he joined Miami the first time, there was a singular, unique reason. He wanted to win titles. When he goes back to Cleveland, the singular, specific reason, bring the title to Cleveland, fix the narrative.
When he came to LA, it was all about brand building, and it was planned. Laker fans are not stupid. Ironically, at the same time when he joined the Lakers is when he finished the I Promise school in Cleveland, had the nice little bow tie to that ending, and then he went to the sunset into LA. Come on, man. This is all part of the brand building. And it definitely has worked out for him, because LeBron being in LA, he's more of a bigger brand nowadays than he ever was, even after he left Cleveland the second time. Being close to Hollywood is paying off.
Goes to LA. We don't really know why, even reporting it out. Like, there's no clear reason. It's like, yeah, he wanted to join a legacy team. He was sick of Dan Gilbert. His wife likes the weather in LA. His kids, they wanted school to go there. Like, he wanted to go to school there. Just sort of a mix of a bunch of reasons where it's like, you can't, when it's that varied and that sort of vague, you can't then say mission accomplished, because we don't really know what the mission was.
Oh, we could see the mission today. We could definitely see the mission today. The fact that LeBron's in a partnership with Warner Brothers, the company that owns Bleacher Report and TNT, He also has another production deal with a company overseas that produces a lot of the late night shows and a lot of the Hollywood movies that we see. A lot of the blockbuster summer films, he's working with the same production company that puts out those. He also starred in Space Jam, and again, he seems like more of a celebrity nowadays than he's ever been.
Spring Hill Entertainment is that spectacular.
Right. So he said, we think there's gonna be movies. So he's in one movie, really. I mean, Trainwreck. He was actually good in Trainwreck. Space Jam. I mean, it made money, but that movie stunk and has no legs. I have young kids. They don't like. They like the Michael Jordan one.
He dropped a House Party movie, which was a flop, but it was a good idea. But LeBron James could have never done that had he still been in Cleveland. It goes to show you that they definitely went out to LA and made the proper connections, as LeBron is the toast of the town, being the captain of the Lakers.
Even Spring Hill is like all the reporting on it is it's not exactly thriving financially, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, like it wasn't to be entertainment. So it's a great point. That was another thing. We all assumed it was going to be the movie. So it's just like it's just been a strange journey. Maybe and that kind of leads me full circle. Like strange journey, and like I just wanted to learn, like, okay, what the hell is the actual deal here? What happened here? What's going on here, and why? To me, it became early on reporting and learning that, like, to tell the story of LeBron arriving in LA, you can't tell that story or fully understand it without understanding what it meant to Jeannie Buss, right? Why that was important to her, and this dark period that the Lakers have been in.
Striking out on a ton of free agents since 2014 with LaMarcus Aldridge. It doesn't get talked about too much, but the Lakers were struggling to even attract free agents.
Why we had arrived at this point where it meant so much to Jeannie Buss to lure a star. And basically that's the Buss family, right? And you mentioned the cap spike. I mean, Dr. Buss is a genius, visionary. He set his children up to fail and the franchise up to fail with the way he set up this trust, right? The way the succession plan, which was basically, I'm not going to tell anyone who's in charge. It's going to be Jeannie and Jim and the Lakers. I mean, your listeners probably know this, but like the Lakers, it's a cliche to say this is Succession, like this is HBO Succession, but this is like sports Succession. Like that, it is. It's a bunch of children fighting it over. He's basically, Jerry Buss is Brian Cox, right? But maybe more time in the Playboy Mansion. It's just like, it's a whole different, you have the kids, the sons are all fighting for his attention. Jeannie is, out of the original four, we'll get to the other two after, but out of the four oldest ones, it's Jeannie, Jimmy, Johnny, and Janie.
And while they're fighting over the estate or just certain controls of the Los Angeles Lakers, their expenses are also going up, because by the time their father passed away, they went from paying a $70 million tax bill that they were grandfathered in as long as their father was alive, and as soon as he passed away, they owed the city of Los Angeles every season $1.4 billion in taxes. So that's another part that doesn't get talked about too much. Their expenses have climbed up significantly, and it resulted in the owners who end up buying the team. They were already purchasing the Lakers piece by piece. After the pandemic, most teams were struggling financially. The NBA borrowed over $800 million. And at the same time, the following season, because fans still could not be in the stands, the Lakers were suffering. And that ownership group ended up buying 27% of the Los Angeles Lakers. So regardless if Jeannie Buss wanted to sell the team or not, they were asset rich and cash poor, and that ownership group, piece by piece, was going to keep buying more and more and more percentages of ownership of that team.
I'm having to memorize that has been interesting. So I have these four. Jeannie is by far the most accomplished and professional, and I guess you could say competent, honestly, in terms of
dynamic,
right? Yeah,
right. Because I mean, the thing that stuck out to me, I don't know if you agree with this, is just if Jim Buss is still there in 2018, LeBron would not have come. Like that.
Correct.
Yeah.
One curveball, the Chris Paul thing is wild, because the Chris Paul, another user of the cliche, like a sliding doors moment. If that goes through, Jim Buss might still be, like, he might have owned the Lakers all the way through because the team might have not been a disaster. I don't know. Jim Buss was in over his head, so you can maybe the idea of betting against him and saying that he would fail there is probably a good bet. But the Chris Paul thing, if they had Chris Paul and Kobe and like Chris Paul as a star there to kind of carry them in, it doesn't allow Jeannie to take the team. So what I mean by that, right, so the setup is that basically he has Dr. Buss leaves, Jim, you're in charge of basketball, Jeannie, you're in charge of business, but oh wait, curveball, nobody knows except Jeannie. Jeannie's actually the governor and can fire Jim. And the kids do not know that. They don't learn that until a meeting later, from the lawyer after Dr. Buss's passing. Nobody knows that. Okay,
Yeah.
they learned that, and that's basically pitting Jim and Jeannie against each other. Jeannie becomes, I compare her to like sort of like the popular backup quarterback in the city who everyone clamors for, and she doesn't do her brother any favors. Like she's walking around the arena pregame. She's very accessible. Then she seems to be like. She's being interviewed on Colin Cowherd. She's being interviewed everywhere. And every time she's asked about the team struggles, it's like, well, that's not me. That's Jim. Basketball decisions, leaving out that she had a role in giving Kobe his golden parachute of a contract.
Yeah.
Which ended up handicapping that franchise for quite some time. But hell, Kobe deserved it.
But leading to so they make a deal, and people that know this, but I'll say it's a wild scene where like Jeannie, they're having a family meeting, and Jeannie says, Jim, when are we getting back in the playoffs? And Jim says, 3 years, I promise. And everyone's like, the brothers are all looking around, like, what are you talking about, 3 years? And she goes, you promise? Because if not, I might have to fire you. And he basically says, okay, we'll shake on it. If I don't make the playoffs in 3 years, you can fire me. And that hangs over them because then it's like, I remember my last book with the process with the Sixers. People always say, why is the timeline was a big thing? Why don't you have a timeline? Why don't you have a timeline?
Yeah.
And the answer is, once you put in a timeline, you're chasing that. And if you start chasing that, you make bad decisions. And that leads to Timothy Mozgov and Luol Deng, because we need to we're basically chasing, we're the Wizards now, chasing the 8th seed. We know we're on the clock. Let's get in there. The Luol Deng thing, it's one of my favorite random stories where like Jim Buss signs him and an assistant coach who was in another room, or not assistant coach, I think it was a front office person, comes in and he basically, the way it was relayed to me is this person that goes, maybe his name's in the book. Clay Moser, I think his name's in there. It's not, whoops. But his name's in there. And he basically says, he's told we signed Jim Buss, and Clay Moser goes, we signed Luol Deng.
Luol Deng,
Clay Moser goes, wait, why? He stinks, basically. And Jim Buss is there, and Jim Buss gets so angry, starts shoving him, puts a finger in his chest, like just yelling at him. It was a messy time. And, but Jim Buss would say he would do that. He did that because they felt like they had to make the playoffs. He had to fulfill this pledge they made. And that failed, and suddenly they look like a disaster. And that then paves the way for Jeannie to fire Jim. And after Jim's fired, he and his other brother basically tried taking the team, boardroom coup is the official term we use, from Jeannie. It is a very insular front office ownership structure, and she really does rely, like the idea that she relies heavily on the people she trusts and knows, like the Rambi, I love that term, like the Rambi, and specifically Linda Rambis, like them, like Rob Pelinka. The part I always, because I'm critical of it in the book, but I also try to make sure of the part, and we'll get to the criticism part, but I try to make sure I understand armchair psychology now, but I do understand the psychology of it, where your brothers tried to take the team from you. You bring in Magic Johnson, who was basically a brother to Jeannie Buss. Like they'd known each other for, since he came in, she was 15 or whatever. Like those are siblings, and he abandons her. He leaves her hanging and abandons her. And I can only imagine the scar that left. And it makes sense that after those two things, what are you going to do? You're going to sort of, circle the wagons, and these are the people who I need to bring in, people who I trust, right? And who I know I can trust, and I know have my best interest, who I believe have my best interest in mind. So I get that. The Linda Rambis stuff is really interesting because, for some reason, it's a sensitive point to Jeannie. Like they push back and, with lawyer stuff and, fact checking. But Linda Rambis deals with agents all the time and is very involved in basketball decisions. And they are in, Jeannie will tell anyone, no, it's not true. Like they insist it's not true. And it just, when I say she talks to agents, it means like, that's not even a great scoop for me. You can call 20 agents, they'll give it to you. Like that's not some hidden detail that like, I'm so amazing that I found out, right? She talks to agents a lot, so much so that like, I have this, like she was the one who reached out to Russell Westbrook's agent when they were talking about completing that trade, when they're going to bring him in. And when Westbrook, and we can talk about Westbrook later, but when him and LeBron had their meeting on the side and whatever, Linda Rambis is the one who calls Westbrook's agent and says, hey, we're going to get something going here. So Linda Rambis talks to agents. And I think that's something that
that's a major red flag right there. Her husband, Kirk Rambis, he's one of the worst NBA coaches ever. Just look at his track record. But on the business side, it sounds like she was helping Jeannie out, and when things got bad, it looked like it spilled over to the player side. Shit. But the Rambis family should not be in charge of any putting together of basketball personnel on a team. No way.
No. I almost think that they do a disservice to the whole narrative by pretending it's not something that it is. Like, I think conspiracies happen when there's like shadowy things and it's a void to fill, right? It's almost, if they made her title senior basketball executive, I actually think that would take away a lot of like the reporting on it and these conspiracies on it.
Does she have any qualification whatsoever?
For basketball, no. I mean, I guess being
Right.
let me rephrase. Maybe being married to Karambas for many years and being around the Lakers for many years, but no, her expertise. And when I say basketball, I should be very clear on court, because like in terms of running an organization, 100%. 100%.
Yeah.
Like she's been around the forum, around players, talent, all this stuff. Like that few people are more qualified, right? I think they do a huge disservice if they said what her job is, where it's sort of like, advisor to Jeannie, and again, not making. I don't think she's making basketball decisions. I don't think she's like pretending like, yeah, we should sign him for defense, right? I don't think that's happening. But like, she's definitely talking to agents, and we're talking about contracts. And when the Russell Westbrook example, when Rob Pelinka messed up the salary cap in the original Anthony Davis trade, and basically messed up, people might remember, but because they messed up the sequencing, they should have agreed to it, but officially done it after the draft. Whatever, the minutia doesn't matter. But they were negotiating with Clutch to waive the trade kicker. She was in on those conversations. Again, that's like, you can tell me she's qualified to do that because she's been around athletes and talking to agents, and God bless, but just don't pretend. When you pretend it's not happening, that's when people start going, wait, what is this, right? Listen, part of it is like the results speak for themselves. So they won a title and they got Luka. The counter is obviously, and so they're set up for, you're set up now. I'm oversimplifying it, but you won a title and now you're set up to be in the contention, whatever. But like the Lakers are going to matter basketball wise for the next 5 to 10 years, right? Like that's just because they got Luka. No one's told me this, to be clear, but I would imagine we got extensions for Pelinka. Like I'm guessing it's not a coincidence that gets done before the sale, right? It's sort of like, hey, we're taking care of our guy before the sale officially goes through, but I'm sure he got paid. He's getting paid well. A lot of mistakes, like, Westbrook, but even the Alex Caruso thing, that was a huge, they let Alex Caruso go and they tried positioning that as they tried saying that was a salary luxury tax thing, but that wasn't. I mean, they let him go and they spent more money on Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Kendrick Nunn, so that's a scouting mistake. And multiple times of building, and it's not all Rob Pelinka, because some of that was magic the first time, but multiple times of building a team around LeBron that doesn't have shooting, right? Which was strange. Like the year one when he first arrived, and then the Westbrook year, year one of Westbrook, shooting was a major issue. They just didn't have it. There's an issue like these very obvious where sometimes I joke as fans, like we think we can do it and we couldn't. But this is one of those things where like, no, it's very obvious what to put around LeBron. Like shooting and defense. Yeah, you can be more creative, but like that, these are baseline things, right? So that's like, there's a lot of drama. To me, it's funny, interesting. We can talk about it. It's like, to me, the big mistake, and I think I didn't harp on this enough in the book as I've like thought about this. The big whiff was it's the Westbrook trade, but what led to that, and it's overreacting to the second COVID season. Like the big mistake everyone makes is thinking that the bubble was the COVID impacted season. That was not. We got majority of the season done, and then everyone's in the bubble, and everyone was healthy, and it was a level playing field, and it was great basketball, right? We can make everything was crazy around there, but it was great basketball. The next year was the bleep show, right? The next year was we have 71 days between the Lakers championship final game, winning the bubble title, and the start of the season. That's the year where everyone's in and out for health and safety protocols.
And also, there were no fans in the stands all the way up until March of that season. So not only that year, the amount of games was shorter, but they still played in the arena with no fans in the stands, which cost a lot of money. That's why we see the new ownership group of the Lakers now. That's when they came through and bought 27% of the Lakers. Jeannie and her family were in desperate need of cash. And all this is after the NBA, just a year before, borrowed $800 million to sort of fund a lot of the teams and keep them afloat.
We don't know you're turning on a TV, you have no idea who's playing. Some arenas have fans, some don't. Like Giannis probably has COVID in the finals, right? Like the whole thing was it was wild. And the Lakers, remember, they start off that year really well. They actually didn't make the playoffs. They lose in the first round to the Suns, but they're up 2-1, I believe. But they lose, and AD and LeBron both go down.
That right there is truly the end of LeBron James's prime. The media will never admit this, but everything we've seen of LeBron since has been on the downhill. He can no longer carry a team. The way Devin Booker was cooking the Lakers in that series, it was over. LeBron can still put up his numbers, but he's not winning past a certain point. The proof is in the pudding. Every season after, he pretty much got swept or experienced some sort of gentleman's sweep at some point in the playoffs.
And AD and LeBron both go down. right? And I get why in the moment it's hard to react. It's hard not to react to that. And the mistake was not being like, you know what, we had like this was crazy. We had no shot at winning this. Like the fact we made the playoffs after 71 day between, like that's wild. Let's just sit back, tweak around the margins. Like nothing major. Let's keep Caldwell Pope, keep Caruso, keep this formula we have of these. We have these big bodies, right? That was a big part of the bubble too, right? Howard and JaVale McGee around Davis, and keep those big bodies. We have our shooters too, like Caldwell Pope and Caruso, and maybe we can add a little oomph here, but like let's not react. And the part that's interesting is they overreacted. They went Westbrook, and it was both parties. It was LeBron's side of group and the front office also wanted to. And to me, that's the big mistake. It's not just that they made the trade; it's that they overreacted to this loss in a season where, I'm repeating, they had no shot. It was crazy. They had no shot.
They definitely did have no shot. But now Yaron Wiseman is going to break down some of the behind the scenes of this whole Russell Westbrook fiasco.
So here's my understanding of what happened. This was hard because it's one of these things where it's like the ultimate he said, and I can, the end notes part of this is if you do any reporting on it now and you ask anyone, everyone blames everyone else, right? My understanding is we're going to separate the two groups, but like you can listen, LeBron's press conference after the Phoenix loss is really interesting because he's really down and it's strange. Where it should have been like, yeah, we had the stuff I said before, and it's kind of like a defeated attitude. And we all know that he huddles up with Anthony Davis and Jared Dudley at the time, who was his sort of like, advisor. And they start going through names and guys and reaching out to people who they think they want more juice, right? Basically more offensive juice to help carry the load, some more, star power or whatever. So they reach out to, and I think these names might be all out there, but Damian Lillard and DeMar DeRozan and Bradley Beal, they either speak to all of them or have them. Bradley Beal told me he went to LeBron's house, I think he said, or he spoke to LeBron. He might have gone to his house. Basically, have these conversations with them, and for whatever reason, none of them work. Either the guy, maybe, there was no trade to have it for the Lakers, or DeMar DeRozan was a free agent, and Lakers couldn't afford him, whatever. It doesn't matter. For whatever reason, none of them should work out. And then LeBron starts talking. I don't know if it's at the same time, if it was a fallback plan or whatever. I think my read on it is a fallback, right? Then they start talking to Westbrook, and LeBron makes contact with Westbrook in whatever way. Westbrook then is at the Wizards. He actually has had a pretty good year, right? He was filling up the stat sheet. They might have been the 8th seed or whatever. Yeah. And Washington has no interest. Like Washington's happy with him. Remember, that's like Ted Leonsis is into like this idea of the 8 seeds. Then like he loves their captain 8 seed, and they like him. He was a great teammate there. I put some of these in the book about him saying like it's Bradley Beal's team, and and just being a good leader. Coaches will tell me he was being a good leader to teammates, the younger guys, and encouraging them, and keep shooting, things like that. They were happy. Washington did not feel like they didn't feel a need to trade him. Then LeBron reaches out, and Westbrook, the pitch is basically, you come be with us, come to return home to LA. Westbrook was a Lakers fan growing up, and it just, the chance to win a title for his hometown team, like that's one Westbrook couldn't pass up. So he calls his agent and says, get me out of here. Like, let's do this. Okay. At the same time, the front office is having their own conversations. And my understanding is that Rob Pelinka was really harping on, we need another star. We want a big three. He had compared it to like, how would we match up with the Nets, the big three Nets, which is fun.
Once again, the big three at that time, that era was beginning to end. So it goes to show you the Lakers, they're a little bit behind the times. Once we started to see the Bucks win the championship, the Denver Nuggets, that big three era, it was already done. The Lakers and the Phoenix Suns, they tried to revive it real quick, but they quickly learned the door has closed on that casket years ago.
We need another star. Let's go do that. And the Lakers, they'd been doing their own diligence. Like it's random. It's like one of these random book anecdotes I had. But Lakers president of business operations, Tim Harris, who's been there for years, dated Jeannie Buss also many years ago, which is just a funny anecdote. I'll say the name. Corey Gaines, who was an assistant coach for the Wizards and knew this guy Tim Harris well, told me a story that Tim Harris called him asking about Russell Westbrook. So the Lakers are doing their own, NBA term, intel gathering, right? On this stuff. And at the same, so after LeBron, pushes this, and LeBron at some point, Westbrook's agent hears from Linda Rambis saying, basically like, you're going to hear from Rob Pelinka. And from there, you have negotiations happen. And then there's there's that Buddy Hield trade, which almost happens or whatever. If people remember, Woj tweeted it and it was taken away, or they went back on it. The Kings to this day are annoyed, or the people, the executives and coaches who were with the Kings then, I should say, are to this day annoyed. But the Lakers, they decide to go for Westbrook. And what I always say is like, you're doing a blame pie thing. It's yeah, do the Lakers trade for Westbrook if LeBron doesn't want it? Maybe not. But they were certainly, or is it pushing it? Maybe not, but they were certainly in on it. It wasn't like Rich Paul called up Rob and said, Rob Pelinka said, we want this, we're demanding this, and like the Lakers had a meeting about how can we push back on this. Like it was certainly not that, right? They were at the least, taking part in this, and if not, they were partners. Westbrook is hard-headed and wouldn't adjust his game on the court, and thinks nobody's letting Russ be Russ, and is annoyed at all of them and passive aggressive, and it's him, right? Like, yeah, maybe they were frustrated, but they really tried. Like, they really tried to work with him and, get him to play certain ways. And I remember an assistant coach, well, there was a story, maybe it's the coaching staff, like maybe Westbrook, they were talking to him about going 1-on-5, just running the ball up the floor 1-on-5, and he would act like he got it. And then the next game, he's doing it every time he touches the ball. And they're sitting there, like, smacking their foreheads, being like, I don't understand. Like, what is this? Just and we've seen it since. It's like been inconsistent in inability and unwillingness to adjust. Forget even his skill set, but an inability and unwillingness to adjust his approach, right? We've seen this how many stops now? Like it just is.
That's false. We've seen Tyronn Lue with the Clippers utilize Westbrook. Same thing with the Denver Nuggets. And to a degree, the Sacramento Kings. At times, Westbrook looks like the best player on the floor for them. The only outlier at the end of the day is the Lakers. We're just going to jump to a quick side note as Pat Bev gave great insight to being Russell Westbrook's teammate in LA. This right here gives us great insight to put things into proper perspective, because a lot of the issues with Westbrook and the Lakers was really through upper management.
Nah, he's different.
Russ is
different. And I like to, for a long time, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm reading this book, get up 5 a.m., work out, woo, woo, woo. I'm getting up 5:30 a.m. And because we got the same trainer in LA. Getting up 5:30, I go to the gym. Yeah, I look down. What car is that? Russ, full of sweat, walking out that bitch. I'm there at 5:30. Oh yeah, he different.
You said he was just eating leaves, no dressing.
Yeah. Imagine, man, Russ, we went from like, not fucking with each other at all to like celebrating Thanksgiving together with the like me, my mom, husband, my sister, and Russ celebrating Thanksgiving together. It was crazy. This motherfucker was eating salad, no dressing.
Ham or turkey, show?
Turkey. I'm talking about like back-to-backs.
I like them both.
Back-to-backs. The first bus to get into the locker room, he there dressed already.
Really?
Like this. Yeah, killer. You don't need no warm-up for this game. Energy Africa game tonight. We don't need no motherfucker warm-up. Throw that motherfucking air. Jersey on, shoes tied, ready.
I know he's rocking back and forth just like that.
Just like that. This motherfucker, he different.
Different.
Shout out to Russ.
So it sounds like Russ was one hell of a teammate. And again, we're going to go back to hear from Uren Wiseman, as now he talks about some of the shadowy people that was hovering around the Lakers. That probably more than likely is one of the reasons why Russell Westbrook has such a hard time. The aura of the whole franchise, it just wasn't Clutch Sports fighting for power. There were other people and other agendas within that Laker organization.
One of the more interesting things I kind of found is like, I think a lot of where I've landed is a lot of the quote Clutch Laker stuff was overstated, right? It was one of my more interesting takeaways. So it starts, the most obvious example is a very public one, was the Ty Lue stuff in 2019. Well, I don't think he was with Clutch.
Well, it started with KCP, right? Like they signed him and everyone's like, oh, this is a way now for them to sort of have a pipeline to LeBron. Yeah.
And that was definitely part of it. Like that was Jeannie Buss learning from her father. Like, we're going to be, this is how we cater to stars. And I mean, a lot of these were anecdotes. They let Rich Paul into practices and he would talk to them. And I mean, my favorite thing is that they let KCP play. I'm going to butcher the language. Was he in a halfway house or on probation? I'm going to again. Yeah. And they let any other player, I think any other organization is like, no, you're suspended. This is crazy. You can't like sleep in and I'm going to use whatever this is. I don't want to use the incorrect term. You can't sleep where this is and then play, suit up and then go back. Like, that's insane. The Lakers are like, nah, it's cool. And so much so that people told me there were stories where he would leave the halfway house, like he wanted to get out of there as quick as he can. So let's say practice started at 10. He would go into the facility and take a nap, and they would come in like he'd be up napping from 6 to 10 because it's more comfortable there than wherever he was sleeping for the month. And people would come in from the facility and be like, "Did he sleep here at night? What is going on? Like, did something happen?" So like they were letting him. Some of his kids would come around. Like they really open. They would roll out the red carpet for him to show. They wanted Clutch to see. This is what we do to our stars. This is how we treat our stars. Which is ironic because then we go to Ty Lue, right? And they don't hire him. And like that's year 2. I always point this out. This is LeBron's been there. He's entering his 2nd season with the team. So this is fresh in the relationship. There's no damage from Westbrook, none of that stuff, right? Like this is year 2, and LeBron makes very clear that he wants Ty Lue to be the head coach. And Ty Lue, by the way, this isn't like a charity hire. Like Ty Lue, great coach, very qualified, former Laker. They care about that stuff. Like Ty Lue was a very obvious, that would be a great hire. He was would have been a good hire. We've seen that he is a good coach, all this stuff. And I can't say they refused to hire him because that's not technically accurate, but
they didn't want to spend the money because they were cash poor. Again, at the end of the day, it's amazing how media members leak out a lot of information once Jeanie Buss sold his team. They talked about how the Lakers, from the scouting department to analytics to even hiring Darvin Ham and JJ Redick, they went on the cheaper side when it comes to spending on around team personnel.
Give him a lowball offer that he just would not accept. The idea being that he should accept it because we're the Lakers, and it annoys LeBron, it annoys Ty Lue, and part of it is there are people who are convinced that part of it is like they were worried, or I should say Rob Pelinka possibly was worried about having another person in there who might be more on LeBron's side, if we're talking about the divide here, right? Than the Lakers, which is ironic because I think it would have helped the other way because I think Ty Lue has enough agency where, like, I don't know how he feels about it. I guess he brought in Westbrook later on, but let's just use that as an example. Like, he might be able to say, no, this is insane. It doesn't work basketball wise. And I could say this to LeBron, whereas Darvin Ham and Frank Vogel can't, right? I actually think it ended up hurting them. So there are examples of like leveraging his power, but I don't know if they're so different than like the amount of Antetokounmpos that are in the Milwaukee Bucks right now, right? Like it's every star. Like again, so we go back. I tell the story about we were talking about the Anthony Davis trade kicker negotiations, right? So as part of that, what Clutch was able to do is, the Lakers saying you're gonna waive your trade kicker, and Clutch says, okay, but why? And the answer is because we want to sign Kawhi Leonard. This is the Kawhi Leonard free agency that's now famous or infamous, right? Yeah. And we want to sign Kawhi Leonard and we need max space. And Clutch says, okay, we don't, it's Rich Paul, another guy worked with him, Mark Termini, who was sort of his lead negotiator. They say,
that guy, Mark Termini, is basically the whole blueprint of Clutch Sports. This guy has been finessing NBA owners since the 90s with Jim Jackson. He even got Ben Simmons paid while he was out with the Philadelphia 76ers. Even LeBron James, low-key, the first time he got a supermax was when he returned to Cleveland. Mark Termini kept on having LeBron sign these one-year deals because not only it applied the pressure for Cleveland to stay competitive, also LeBron on the back end, he made an extra $20 million as the years piled up. So that whole aura of Clutch Sports, getting guys paid and getting guys their money, it really comes from Mark Termini. He is the blueprint.
Okay, if you want, fine. You're not going to get Kawhi. If you get Kawhi, great. That's fine. Great. That works for all of us. If not, though, we're going to waive our trade kicker. You're re-signing KCP on a high number. And that's like, again, so that's leveraging power. It's not necessarily like a LeBron thing. That's leveraging power in a way. And LeBron is the biggest example of something LeBron was able to push through. And, I know there are Clutch guys on the team throughout the years, but like, again, I think the idea that LeBron was running things was incorrect. JJ Redick, we can talk about this. JJ Redick, not hired because of LeBron. LeBron had nothing to do with it. I know everyone thinks it was his podcast partner, nothing to do with it. It was more the opposite, and so much so that like I think there was some distrust, and it almost led to Ty Lue's a great example. We're almost like 4D chessing our way out of a good hire because we're worried about what this could mean for these dynamics, right? It's a snowball effect because like we were both aligned on it. So then we're gonna both blame the other side behind the scenes. And there's true, like if you see a report, like it's all true, right? Like LeBron did want Westbrook and Rob Pelinka did want West. Like that stuff's all true. It's just the order of operations is maybe muddled. And again, it creates like this shadow war is too strong a term, but just a narrative battle, right? A battle over the narrative, and that matters to them. I'm endlessly fascinated by Rob Pelinka. Like I wrote a lot. Like I wrote a lot about him. I talked to a lot of people in his life. I find him fascinating, and like it's like a quietly important historical NBA figure in terms of who he's been with and worked for. Like he was Kobe's right-hand guy, Kobe's guy for all those years, and Kobe's obviously, NBA icon, and then he's gonna end up being the GM of the Lakers for what, 15 years, right? At least, like that's a big job. And LeBron and Luka, just like this really important NBA figure who I find endlessly fascinating. And the idea of how he got there, just like, for people who don't know, the basic story is that Rob Pelinka worked for Artellum. By the way, I add to Rob Pelinka's resume, he's part of the Fab Five, right? It's almost like a Forrest Gumpian thing here. And so he gets to Kobe. I mean, I'll give the quick version. Like, Kobe's with Artellum when he gets engaged. No one in Kobe's life wants Kobe to be engaged. They basically want him to do a prenup. Kobe doesn't want that. His wife doesn't want that. Or Vanessa didn't want that. And it damages the relationships. And there's other reasons why Artellum, he's growing. You have to hand him off. But basically, someone else needs to be Kobe's point man. And Rob Pelinka raises his hand and says, "I'll do it." And that sets him on this path. And then Rob Pelinka sticks by him, and during the sexual assault allegations trial, he sticks by him, which I hate putting in these terms, but like it becomes one of the all-time great NBA bets, like sports business bets that somebody makes, right? That I'm gonna stick by him and say that this guy's gonna emerge on the other end, and then I'm the guy who was with him the whole time, right? And that just forges that relationship. And because he's Kobe's guy, then Jeannie likes him because she kept bringing Kobe, so you get the next best thing, and there are people who don't trust a word he says, which is fascinating for somebody to be able to survive for 30 years in an industry that's so close.
Because he has that Mamba mentality, just like Kobe. That's why they connected so much. Rob Pelinka is a snake, no doubt about it. Magic Johnson, on his way out of LA, when he was the GM, he kind of alluded to that.
So close, and like this small ecosystem, and kind of repeat customers is the term I use. One former GM told me a story that like when Rob was an agent, when there were agents who would get deals done at the combine in April, who you knew you'd be good until July, until free agency, and Rob was not one of those. And I thought that's almost the best summary. Just people thought he wasn't trustworthy. I mean, there's a whole rabbit hole you can go into the Carlos Boozer, his negotiations with Carlos Boozer, which take an hour to unpack, but basically reneging. They basically convinced the Cavs to let him decline an option for Boozer under the agreement that we then re-sign a number. And after they decline, with the paperwork's officially through, Boozer then signs with the Utah Jazz for a larger number.
Sounds like Rob Pelinka should be working for Clutch Sports, right alongside Mark Termini. But again, that's that Mamba mentality. That's why him and Kobe were so close.
And the difference, like where this wasn't the same as like, a July 1st oral agreement, but then you go back, like this was different because it literally would not have been possible without telling the Cavs, without the agreeing to the Cavs that we'll agree to this if you decline this option, right? It was next level. And then Pelinka will tell people, well, I actually didn't take the commission on it. And we fired Boozer and it didn't matter. Where like the story I was actually told is that Artellum told him, you have to fire, either you're out or he's out, right? Like basically made him choose. So stories like that. And yet he's really friendly, and he's like, he talks to you, and he quotes the Bible all the time, but he's a weird guy personally. Like, I know I'm rambling, but people telling stories about, Lakers, he's front office, they're doing fun facts, get to know each other. And usually it's like, I went to college here, I did this. And his fun fact is I played horse against Obama in the White House. And everyone in the room is like, what are we supposed to do with that? Like, just like not getting it, right? Just a different kind of guy. So I don't know. I love Rob Pelinka. This is serious, but I don't take your work seriously, but not yourself too seriously, and just understanding that like he's playing in a games department, and he just seems to relish it, right? I love Jared Dudley. Rich Paul's like I'll give another guy. I mentioned him before, but this group, your listeners will probably like Mark Termini, right? So I didn't know much about Mark Termini before. And Mark Termini is sort of we talk about an important character. Mark Termini is sort of a forgotten person in NBA history. And so Mark Termini's background is, the end of it is he was the guy Rich Paul brought in to help when he launched Clutch. And
he's the guy Rich Paul brought in to copy the whole blueprint to set that up. Mark Termini plays hardball. I've touched base on previous segments about him. I'll link it in the description below, but this guy right here is basically the whole blueprint of Clutch Sports.
Paul and LeBron, their group, I think, are what separates them in terms of the off-court stuff and why they succeed in a way that no one else does is, Rich Paul said, like, know what you don't know and find the experts who know it. And they are so good at that, so good at recognizing we want to do this, but we know we're not experts in this, so let's go find the people who can do this for us. And that's in Hollywood, politics, all this stuff. And Mark Termini was an agent who was in the Cleveland area and was famous for basically executing two of the more famous holdouts in NBA history, and the original ones with Rod Strickland and more famously Jim Jackson with the Mavericks. People can Google it, but it's really interesting. Jim Jackson was like the number 3 pick, and they lowball him, and he skips most of the year, and they end up getting a contract.
And it's amazing how NBA owners still don't pick up who he is, the new crop of owners, because even with the Ben Simmons fiasco in Philadelphia before he exited, he still ended up getting paid, and that's all because of Mark Termini.
Once you learn the history, you're like, oh, now I see, like, when you remember the clutch stuff with J.R. Smith and Tristan Thompson at first, like those years where they're holding out, everyone says it's crazy, and you get it in Eric Bledsoe. That was a big example, right? Like, a lot of that was Mark Termini was sort of the architect of these negotiation strategies, and Rich Paul deserves a lot of credit because Rich Paul he was comfortable enough with himself and the willingness to like let Mark Termini run negotiations. But the two of them have had legal issues since, so they don't, I think Mark Termini sued with Rich Paul for wages. They settled or something. But Mark Termini was
then they brought in that old softy Andy Miller to replace him.
Right, to replace him, exactly. So, which is it's similar but different strategy. Andy Miller is more of like the guy literally knows everybody because he's been around the NBA for 30 years, and Mark Termini was like, he doesn't care about friends. His whole thing is I'm gonna squeeze you on negotiations. And the marriage of him with a player like LeBron was sort of like, when people think of clutch sports, it's Rich Paul building, big picture and saying I can bring this guy, but it's Mark Termini's negotiation strategy and vision. And he was the one, leading the stuff with teams a lot. And to me, it was interesting to learn about. I felt kind of weird. Like, I've been covering the NBA. That was when I was first starting around 2016-ish. I was a little on the edge, and I didn't really know a lot of this stuff. And he's sort of been disappeared, or his story is sort of unknown. And to me, it was interesting to learn about the role he's played in this stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how his story is becoming more and more unknown. But Termini actually spoke on that and said that as a new crop of NBA owners come into the league, some of them are not really made aware or don't even care historically what happened. So he continues to get his way, as we see with the Ben Simmons situation, how it played out in his exit with the Philadelphia 76ers. But it is what it is. There's a lot of voices in LA, in the back doors, and Jeannie Buss recently getting rid of more of her siblings out the front offices as the new owners of the Lakers are looking to shake shit up and put the Lakers back into their proper place as far as their net worth going up alongside the Golden State Warriors, and setting up more of an in-house infrastructure so they can properly monetize going forward. That infrastructure definitely involves real estate, as the TV money in the future will begin to dry up, and the many teams throughout the NBA will have to diversify their revenue streams. But this was good. A lot of great insight in what's going on with LeBron James as his venture with the Los Angeles Lakers is beginning to come to an end. And it was fruitful for both parties. LeBron was able to increase his net worth and his star power, and Jeannie Buss was able to stay afloat, inflate the Lakers' evaluation, and end up getting a buyout. But the days of the family-ran business and the politics of that mom-and-pop shop behind the scenes is coming to an end. Make no mistake about it, the Dr. Buss Lakers, that era is long gone, and there will be greener pastures for the Lakers and their fan base.